Hold on, I have a point to this.
I'd rather be at home.
Hello, and welcome back to Live, Love, Life, and Travel. This is your girl Shamika, and if you're new here, welcome. Just to let you know, I upload my travel topic videos on the weekdays and my free talk videos and my story time videos on the weekends. So if you're interested, please hit that subscribe button. Let's get to the video. I have some definitions here. Westernization is a process whereby societies come under or adopt Western cultures in areas such as industry, technology, law, politics, economics, lifestyle, diet, clothing, language, alphabet, religion, philosophy, and values. Westernization has been an accelerating influence across the world and in the last few centuries, with some thinkers assuming Westernization to be equivalent or the same as modernization. A way of thought that is often debated. The overall process of Westernization is often two-sided, in that Western influences and interests themselves are joined with parts of the affected society at minimum to change towards a more westernized society in the hope of obtaining Western life in some aspects of it, while Western societies are themselves affected by this process and interactions of non-Western groups. Alright, so that's one definition. Hold on, I have a point to this. Modernization refers to the model of progressive transition from the pre-modern or traditional to a modern society. Modernization theory originated from the idea of German psychologist Max Weber. The theory looks at the internal factors of a country while assuming with assistance, traditional countries can be brought to development in the same manner more developed countries have been. Colonization, the action or process of settling among the establishing control over the indigenous people in an area. African boasts a tradition of higher education institutions and pre-Western Western colonization. The action of appropriating a place or domain for one's own use. Just because I got some haters on my last video, I'm gonna look up one more definition and just stay with me. I have a point. Gentrification, a process of renovating or deterioration of urban neighborhoods by means of influx a more affluent residents. This is common and controversial topic in politics and urban planning. Conversation surrounding gentrification has evolved as many of the social scientific community have questioned the negative connotations associated with the word gentrification. One example is gentrification can be led to more displacement of lower class income families in gentrifying neighborhoods. However, every neighborhood faces unique challenges and reasons for displacements vary. Generally, gentrification is considered to improve in the neighborhood for the people moving in that area. Gentrification process is typically the result of increased interest in a certain environment. Early gentrifiers may belong to low-income artists or bohemian communities, which increase the attractiveness and flair of a certain quarter. The further steps to increase investments in a community and the related infrastructures by real estate development, businesses, local government, and community activities and resulting economy development, increased attraction of business to the low crime rates. In addition to political benefits, gentrification can lead to population migration. Alright, that is gentrification. That is difference between gentrification and Westernization. And the reason why I'm reading these definitions is because I want to be clear on what each thing is. And if you would have noticed at the beginning when I read the gentrification definition, they did add that it can be also sort of seen the same as modernization, and modernization can also be seen as Westernization. Both topics, all three things, are very controversial, whether they are negative or positive, and whether the positives overcome the negatives and vice versa. I know I did a video about gentrification a few months ago, and again, I got a lot of people that was like, you're a stupid bitch, you don't know the difference between gentrification and Westernization. And I do know the differences. Did I know the exact definitions? No. But because the reason why I use the word gentrification is because that is how people were talking about it at the time amongst travelers. People were using that term gentrification, but it is more like Westernization, even though I am pretty sure that some Thai families have been pushed out of their neighborhoods. But I think is more of a Westernization thing. And the reason why I'm bringing it up again, because that conversation didn't really stop after I finished that video. Actually, I've had this conversation with other travelers in the last 4 months, just throughout my travels. It just sort of it's come up quite a bit throughout casual conversation, and it's come up in a way where our travelers sort of helping spread this negativity, because it is controversial, and a lot of, I feel like, uppity travelers see it very much as a negative thing, and saying that travelers, we are the ones sort of pushing this forward, and we should stop visiting these countries that are being westernized to show that we don't support this, and so forth and so on. And so it has me thinking about it quite a bit, and I still don't really know what my stern stance on it is. So this is more of me having a conversation in it and opening it up to debate. I am not saying I am completely right or completely wrong about anything. I'm just saying this is my point of view, and this is how some people come across to me. So let's just start with the person that I had this conversation with, that we had the most intense conversation about Westernization. And we're sitting down, we're just having some drinks or whatever. None of us were intoxicated, by the way. But we were talking about where we've been and where we traveled, the same 20 questions that all travelers ask each other. And I mentioned that I was in, I think he mentioned he was in Bali, and then I mentioned I was in Bali, and I think he mentioned he was in Canggu, and he was just like, ugh, I didn't like it, and I was like, oh my god, I love Canggu, I really liked it, and he was like, it was just too Western to me, it's disgusting, I can't stand when these countries come over here and Westernize these countries, and it's disgusting, and I would never ever represent that, I would never support that, I would never stay in a country that's like that, and I would just kind of I felt like it was coming off quite harsh, and I'm like, well, why are you gonna hurt the country by not helping their economy just because of what someone else did? I would get back to Bali, because Bali is a bit of a different category to me, and I'll explain why later. The same person had no problems with Chiang Mai. He loved Chiang Mai. To me, Chiang Mai is just as westernized as Bali. I think the difference between Chiang Mai is Chiang Mai has a lot more buildings, a lot more dense, it has a larger population, it's a bigger city, so you do see more Thai people and you see more local businesses. And Bali is a lot more sparse. It's not a lot of buildings, it's not a lot of businesses, but the businesses do seem a lot more segregated. I mean, because if you go into what I guess can be seen as a city center, but it doesn't look like a city, but where most of the restaurants and shops are, they're all Western. None of them are locally owned or anything like that, but all the local businesses are within the neighborhoods. So it can seem very this all looks like Western and all the local people being pushed out. But to me, I think it's just as Western as Chiang Mai. So it was kind of odd that he had no problem with Chiang Mai, but he had a big problem with Canggu. And the thing is not every time, but a lot of times when I've had this conversation with other travelers, it comes off as if and this is just my perspective, I am not saying I'm right or wrong, but it comes very much off they're travel aristocrats, they're just too cultured to accept this westernized country, and it's less of a care or concern for the locals who live in this country, and more of a, I'm not having the travel experience that I deserve. I thought I was going to come to Indonesia and Bali and Thailand and Cambodia and Laos and just see all these local peoples in their huts and their grass skirts and swinging from the trees and hunting boar. I don't know what they actually expected to see. I think when people think developing or third world country, they think feeble, naked people running around, not knowing how to read or write. I don't know exactly what they were expecting to see, but I feel they felt their travel experience was ruined or hindered because they had to see the skyrise in Malaysia, and that's just too Western for them. So it doesn't come off as I care about them, even if or it comes off very white knighty. Again, I think people from Western countries, even if sometimes they have the best intentions, I feel they feel because locals are living in a third world or developing country, that there's somehow these feeble-minded, ignorant people, like childlike, where they need someone to come and rescue them. And I just think that's kind of like disrespectful to the people who live there, and I think it's also kind of patronizing. Like, I watched a program about this nonprofit company that was going into these villages in Africa, and this one part of Africa, these villagers were having this epidemic where a lot of them were going blind and getting really, really horrible eye infections. And it really was as simple as washing their hands after they used the bathroom, but they weren't doing that. They were wiping their butts with their hands and then putting it in their eyes, and their eyes were getting affected. But the people were very religious, and they had their own religious beliefs, and they thought that when you go blind, it was a punishment from God. So even though to the nonprofits, they were like, oh my God, like, this is such a simple solution, like, this is crazy, they think God is punishing them, this is dumb. They couldn't go swoop in and be like, oh my gosh, everything you guys believe in is wrong, all of you are ignorant, all of you are uneducated, let me show you how to live your life, and talk down to them. They couldn't do that. They had to start very, very slow and start with the elders and educate the others through conversation, casual conversation, and befriending them. It was a very slow process. You can't just go in and tell people that they're ignorant and stupid and I'm going to save you. That's patronizing. It's disrespectful to those people. So I feel like even if it's a white knighting type of thing, that it comes off very like you think you're better and something like that. And again, I feel like it's less of I care about this community and more of, oh, they ruined my travel experience. I wanted to see, like, you know, little brown kids swinging from the tree or something. It's like, it's weird the way, to me, that's how it comes off. That's how it comes off. And even if their heart's in the right place, it still comes off like, you know, Captain Save a Hoe. Kind of like that. Not that I'm calling countries a hoe. But that's how it feels like to me. So putting that to aside, I want to talk about the actual Westernization of countries, because for me, it was interesting to read those definitions of how they said that Westernization can also equate to just modernization, because I always like when I was in Malaysia, when I was in Penang, we visited this tiny little town next to a mountain that was so cute. But going to that town, I went through a part of Malaysia that I had never seen before, and it was like full of skyrise buildings, full of malls, super modern, super industrial. It's just, and from the outside in, it looks very, very Western. But I kind of thought to myself, like, why does that have to be Western? Why can't it just be modern? What's wrong with countries wanting to modernize? What's wrong with countries wanting to build infrastructures and transportations and have technology and advancements in medicine? What's wrong with, you know, engineering and architecture? What is wrong with countries wanting to compete with other countries? I feel like people feel like developing countries should always just stay developing and never ever like catch up. What's wrong with that? So why is it always seen as a Western thing? Why can't it just be a modern thing or an industrial thing? Why does it always have to be, oh, it's too American, or it's too European? Is it because we come from America, we come from Europe? So, not we, but I'm just saying tourists as in general. So when we see that and it reminds us of at home, because we compare it to home because that's what we know of, or is it Westernized because people from other countries came, well, technically by definition that is what it is, people come from other countries to build up, and because it was influenced by somebody else, then that's why it's Westernized. And if it is Westernized, it's always a negative thing, because by definition, it's usually on both sides. It's usually someone said, hey, you're allowed to come over here and make businesses, and hey, you're allowed to influence us with your culture and whatever your other traditions, and we'll have cultural exchange and all these things. I understand people who are coming from the position of they think all modernization and all industrial and all investments in anything is bad, because I know there's a lot of people who travel because they're trying to detach from that. They don't want to be on their iPhones all the time. They think constantly building on top of building on top of building is destroying the environment. They think constantly building transportation systems, industrializing countries is polluting the environment. So a lot of them are traveling because they're trying to get away from that, because they think that's bad in general. That's bad for their country and it's bad for other countries. So I understand that. But for people who thinks good for the goose but not good for the gander. I don't get that. Like, why is it okay for you to go home and have infrastructure and buildings and technology and all these things, but it's not okay for this other country to do the same thing? Why do they have to stay behind? Why is it not okay for them to continue and build up? I'm not saying there's not pros and cons to everything, because what comes along with that is also consumerism and materialist attitudes, and I don't like materialism, and I think that can be damaging to people's lives and society and psychological and mental health. But so I'm not saying there's not pros and cons to things, but a lot of travelers kind of just see it as a bad thing. But why is it okay for your country to have those things and not okay for this country to have those things? And why is it always seen as Western and not just modern? So yeah, and then sometimes it's also Westernization comes from being colonized, which can come from bad things, from war, or from people coming over and seeing that you have resources, so they're going to come to your country and force you to give them their resources or take your resources. So yes, colonization, Westernization can be birthed from being colonized, and that can be seen as bad, but you know, that's history. Like if you go to Penang, Malaysia, you see all these colonial buildings that was brought there or designed or whatever, influenced by the British who colonized the country. Should we all go and just burn and destroy all the colonial buildings so they have no influence from the Western world? Like, they're beautiful. We can appreciate them now, right? Or should we just all snub our noses at it and look down on it because it's not Malaysian enough? So I don't know. Like, I understand the knee-jerk reaction to like, ugh, ew. Like, because especially when I went to Phuket near Patong, like, that is like Western tourism gone wrong. Like, it's gross. But I'm sure there's a lot of people who love it and live there. But But when I first saw it, that knee-jerk reaction was like, this is disgusting. As a traveler, I don't approve. But so I understand that, and there was a part of me that wanted to be super cultured and not like Canggu because it was Western, but I couldn't help it. I liked it and I enjoyed it. And I have talked to, I have local friends here in Thailand, and I have actually talked to them and asked them what do they think about tourists, and every last one, even if they were pandering to me, and I don't think they're all doing that because I have friends who would be honest with me and we talk very bluntly to each other, but every last one said they liked the tourism. They wanted to stay because it helps their economy. Like, that was always the number one thing. It helps our economy. It makes us money. Like, I depend on this. Like, why would I want this to go away? And I have one friend who, the way he sees Westerners is, he do think he has a little bit, I feel like he has a little bit of like envy because he thinks Westerners have it easy, and he also thinks Westerners are quite lazy, but he also in a way pities them because he feels like Westerners are very materialistic, and he was like, where I come from, what brings you happiness is just living in a moment, enjoying life and friends and family, and he feels like a lot of Westerners are constantly chasing after happiness and they'll never actually ever achieve it. So he actually kind of looks down, like he kind of pities Westerners. So there was no, he never was like, oh, I hate them, I wish they would go away, they're destroying my culture, destroying my home. And most people that I've asked said like they love it and they wanted to continue and to grow because it helps their economy. And so when you have other travelers sort of condemning other travelers from indulging in developing countries that are westernized, it's like, then what do you want us to do? And I asked him, like, what do you want us to do? Like, do you want us to stop traveling there? And then that kind of ruins their economy, or that at least hinders their economy. So how is that helping them? So let's talk about Bali for a second. I kind of shelved that and I want to bring it back. One of the ways I do think Westernization can definitely hurt a country is when people come over to countries and build and start businesses and do not give anything back to that country. So I'm not sure of this for sure, but I've talked to a couple of people talked to me who live in Bali, some who grew up in Bali, and say that a lot of Australians and Germans and people from Sweden or whatever are coming to Bali and Canggu to build and create businesses. They're not hiring any locals and they're not paying any taxes. So they're not giving anything back to that country, but they're taking. And so for me, I do disapprove of that. If you're going to come to a country, I think you should give back. And one of the biggest ways you can give back is through your dollars, like to put back into their economy. So I don't approve of that. I know Thailand has some strict rules in place to keep that from happening. They do not want a bunch of Westerners to come over here and take a bunch of jobs and buy a bunch of land and build a bunch of buildings. So they're trying to keep that from happening. So they have rules in place. And if you do have businesses, you have to pay your taxes. You have to pay lawyers. You have to pay all this money to actually do have that done. So for me, as long as you're giving back, it's like the biggest thing that I can do if I'm to show my appreciation for a country for allowing me to stay there, especially as long as I have, is to give back financially and to respect their culture, respect their traditions, respect their rules, and just be kind. Like, that's as much as I can do, you know. So, you know, if people want to like boycott Westernizations of countries, and by not visiting those countries, I don't really see how that's helping at all. I don't know, so that's sort of really my video. Is all Westernization bad? Is all modernization Westernization? And what do we do about this as travelers? Yeah, like, do you think countries should have to just stay behind? If they're a developing country, they should just stay a developing country? Or do you think if they become modernized, it has to be on their own terms and not influenced whatsoever by the outside world? I don't know. Tell me, guys, what you think. Because it's still something that I think about. Like, you know, is it bad? Is it good? Like, I don't know. Like, you know, I haven't talked to every single person, every single local, so I don't know the extent of the negative effects or the extent of the positive effects. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video if you want to like it, guys. Share it. And if you want to continue having conversations like this, please subscribe. And if you subscribe, please hit that bell to get the notifications when I do upload. Again, comment, tell me, guys, what you think. And thank you from Live, Love, Life, and Travel.
Yes, I've been blind, but when I come back, you know, no, I ain't got the time, but if my